Hey, Aubrey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
Good. So, question for you. I'm curious about your study habits.
All right.
Have you ever taken a test without studying at all? Just walked in cold to take an exam?
Yes. I remember in one of my more advanced French classes, I did not study at all. I was really busy with work and I was not getting a good grade in the class. So I
no.
was thinking I was going to have to repeat it to increase my grade anyway.
Oh,
So I
geez.
just didn't take the time to study, but I took the test anyway just to see what I would get and really bombed it.
Really bombed it.
was
Okay.
really
Okay.
tough.
I thought you were going to say you just walked into every French test with just naturally
No,
knowing.
this is before I was that fluent. I hadn't lived there yet.
Okay.
So I had gone as an exchange student, but I hadn't gone as a nanny in Belgium yet. So I wasn't that fluent and my grammar wasn't that great. Like it was tough.
Yeah. The key was the immersion that you had, right?
Oh
Which
yeah.
changed
Once I
everything.
lived there as a nanny and had friends and
Oh, yeah.
it's true. That opened it was the key to fluency for me.
The key to fluency.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this preparation because I think a lot of, this is a mistake native speakers make because they say, oh, I have to take an English test. Okay, I'll just show up. I'll walk in. And sometimes they don't score what they need. They don't score
Yeah.
that 7, 8,
They're
9
often
that
shocked.
they expect or need.
Yes, even native speakers, right? They don't prep at all because they're like, oh, I speak English fine. I'll
Yep.
be able to get a high score and are surprised when their score is much lower than they would expect.
And for learners, I mean, even if you're at the C1, C2 level and you feel
Right.
very confident, maybe you're like a CEO of a large company, but you still need to take the exam and you don't learn about the exam, you probably won't get the score you need, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. It's really interesting how it's not just a comprehension test.
No, it's not.
It really doesn't just test your English level. If
Yeah.
you don't really understand the exam and have strategies, you likely won't get the score you need.
Yeah. I mean, there are other exams emerging now that are more just pure a test of your English, right? Like you don't need to learn
Yes.
strategies. IELTS is not that test, right?
Right.
So
Definitely.
that's more than half of what we do here is we tell you about the tests. That's huge.
Exactly.
So Aubrey, we do have a poll to share from Spotify. What was this poll?
Yes, it was from a recent episode, 1554, which was Terrific Tone for IELTS Essays. This was part 2 of a 3-part series, Semi-Formal Letters. And the question we asked was, what kind of writing task 1 letter is most challenging for you to write? And the options were informal, semi-formal, or formal. What were the results?
Yeah, and these results line up with what I would expect to see. So informal, 25%, semi-formal, 50%. Formal 25%. And that makes total sense to me because I think that's where a lot of our listeners get tripped up, both on IELTS and also out in the real world is I don't want to be super casual. I don't want to be super formal, but how do I go in between? Right?
Exactly. Absolutely. Knowing when to write a semi-formal letter, like who would that be to, and then how to strike that tone, the phrases
Yeah.
to use, the grammar chunks. That is so tricky. So if you missed that series, definitely scroll up and check it out. It was a 3-part series. We handled each of these tones in its own episode, semi-formal, informal, and formal.
Love it. So important. And guys, be sure to participate in our Spotify polls. If you're not watching or consuming the show on Spotify, you can do that. That way you can participate and make your voice heard. We do post polls after every episode, and then we have some key polls that we like to share with the audience. Right? So get involved.
Absolutely. We love seeing the results and sharing often the results here. So go answer the poll.
All right, Aubrey, where should we start today?
All right, so there are a few common mistakes that are made by many IELTS students, and these mistakes can cause you to get stuck at that band score of 6, 5.5 even when you need a 7 or higher. So today we are going to help you avoid these mistakes.
Yeah, we just featured our student Chi, right?
Yes.
And it's a very similar storyline here where he started with a 5.5, came into our course, learned the strategies, learned about the test, improved his English enough so he was ready, and he bumped his score up to a 7. Right?
Exactly. In less than 90 days to go from 5.5 to a 7, it is possible. Like if you've been studying for a year, you just keep not getting the scores you need. It is possible in a short amount of time if you have strategies and a system to get that 7 or higher that you need.
100%. So there are essentially 3 mistakes we're going to feature today, I believe, Aubrey. Is that right?
Yes.
3 of them?
Yep.
Okay. The magic 3. So these are what we're going to avoid. What's mistake number 1?
All right. Number 1 is not learning strategies specific for the IELTS exam.
Yeah.
So this is really tricky. Like you were saying, Lindsay, every test is different. Some do test fluency more, right? For IELTS, there are specific strategies for each question type on IELTS reading and listening, and then different strategies that are needed for your writing essays and different strategies for IELTS speaking. And you need all of these to be able to get the score that you need on test day.
100%. So we can't be off preparing for IELTS with a TOEFL tutor,
Right,
or a Duolingo tutor, or some other kind of, or just a general English teacher. It just won't work, guys. It won't work.
Exactly. You need strategies specific to the IELTS exam, information specifically about this exam that are proven to work, right? So wherever you want to make sure that you ask your IELTS teacher, how many of their students have achieved their target score before you use their strategies, right?
And I think also another good question you can ask your teacher is, tell me about the scoring system.
Yes.
Right? That is, it's good to get success stories. And then also, because if they don't know the scoring system, they can't really hide behind that question, right?
Yes, right. They need to be able to explain how their strategies directly impact the score that you will get, right? How are they tied to the scoring system? Because it all comes back to that.
Yeah. And just asking, okay, what is the examiner looking for on speaking part 1? What do they expect on speaking part 2 that's different than part 1? Asking these very specific questions will tell you whether you're working with the right person. Right?
Exactly. And they should be giving you strategies for each part of the test. And then knowing those strategies, will help you build confidence and avoid anxiety. But also, those strategies aren't enough. You have to practice them. If you just know them, you'd go on test day, but you wouldn't really know how to apply them.
And like we said last week, there are right times and wrong times to actually take those practice tests, right? And practice exercises. And we do show you that in our course, in our study plan. But you don't want to take a practice test too early because it's a big waste of time, right?
Yes. If you're not using strategies, if you haven't really mastered these strategies with question sets, with that type of question, then it won't really help you to take a full exam.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's mistake number 1. And what would be mistake number 2, Aubrey?
Yes. Mistake number 2 is not getting balanced practice. So what really helps here is having a study plan that includes test preparation and general fluency building. Many students, like you said, Lindsay, will just do test practice and not improve their general fluency, or they're only really focused on general fluency if they feel like the speaking is what they need to work on the most, and they won't learn strategies for IELTS, listening or reading or how to write the essays. It really needs to be practicing for every part of this test.
Exactly. And I would also say this kind of scaffolds with the time you have ahead of you to prepare.
Right.
Right. Like if you come in a year early, that's great. We want you listening to our podcast a year before you're taking IELTS. Maybe even you're in a course, but you're going to spend that time mostly on general fluency. And then by the time you're 60, 90 days out, you're going to flip over and start learning test strategy, but you still maintain the fluency building. Right?
Exactly. Right. Yes. This is the best way to do it. It's adjusted a little if you only have 30 days, right? So the best thing to do is to write out a daily study plan. You're creating a chart that details exactly what you will do each day, how much time you will spend on it. And these activities should be a balance of test practice and general fluency building if you have 90 days or less before you take the test. You must also build in time to give your mind a rest, right, Lindsay?
A rest is really important. So we recommend to our students, honestly, 2 to 3 hours a day of prep, 5 to 6 days a week, but do not study that 7th day, right? Because you're taking measured steps and you don't need to panic, right? And you need that 7th day of the week to rest and relax and let your brain absorb what you've been working on all week. But the other days are pretty intensive. 2 to 3 hours a day is pretty intense, don't you think?
It is, yes, but it really is necessary, especially if you have 30 to 60 days. It'll be a little less time if you have quite a less of a strict timeline. But once you're at 30 to 60 days out, yes, it should be 2 to 3 hours per day, 5 to 6 days a week.
Really good. Good to know. All right, Aubrey, what is mistake number 3?
All right, number 3 is not planning your prep time well. So this is really interesting. When you get serious about the IELTS, you will need to choose a course and start studying, and you should set a test date. All of these are benchmarks, are things that will keep you motivated, will let you know how much time you have so that you can have that study plan. You need a deadline, right? So that you are motivated to study every day you need to.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. I've gotten on the phone with a number of students that were interested in our course, 3 Keys IELTS, and I said, okay, what's your target score? What's your test date? And have you taken the exam before? These are the key questions I always ask. And when they don't have a test date, I get a little nervous because I think you can join us in the course, but it would really be better if you set a test date and then and then you come in and everything changes when there's a timeline. Right?
Absolutely. Even if that test date is a year from now, it still is good to have something to work with so that you know how much time you can just build general fluency and at what point, on which date are you going to start learning strategies and taking practice tests, for example.
Timelines change everything. It's amazing. What else do we need to know here about planning prep time well?
Yeah, well, it's vital that you leave enough time to prepare. So it's interesting. If you are an advanced learner, you should take at least 30 days to prepare for your IELTS exam. Because like you were saying, Lindsay, often C1, C2 students might think, I could take a week or two and that'll be enough to like learn the strategies, learn anything about the test I need to do. And it's really not. There's so much specific to IELTS that you're going to need some time to learn all of that.
Oh my gosh. If you take a week or two, you'll be so overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. Just because there are so many different parts of the test. And again, there are strategies that we teach you for each part of the test, right?
Exactly. So. Yeah. And this is interesting because it depends on your level, right? If you are a B1 or a B2 learner or lower now, you will need at least a year studying for IELTS to build fluency to the level where you could get a 7 or higher on speaking, writing, right? So that first half of the year would be spent more on general fluency. And then later in the year, you would move to test strategy.
Yep. And we're assuming most people are usually generally aiming for that 7 or higher. That is a typical cutoff for most institutions. Sometimes for you, it might be 6.5 or 7.5 or 8, but most people fall somewhere in that range. Right, Aubrey?
Exactly. Yes. So there are a lot of things that you can do, specific things to set you up for success. We have a lot of students that we see who have had to take the test over and over before they come to us and they're frustrated. And most of them are doing the same things wrong, right? If you don't have a system, a daily study plan, if you don't know when to start learning strategies, or if you're burned out from taking test practice, there are a lot of things that you can do to fix that or avoid in the first place.
I mean, there's just so much mental energy that could be wasted if you're running around the internet trying to decide whose YouTube video should I consume? Who can I trust? Right. Do I really should I combine this person's strategy with that person's strategy? Oh, there was an Instagram update from this person. No, that is such a waste of time.
You don't have time for all that. Totally.
Yeah, you need to lock into a plan with a team that you trust and follow it, right? Because that means you get to sit down with your precious 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe time away from family, away from friends, and just make sure that time is 100% spent well. Right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And so when we created an IELTS course, we made sure to include this. We have a study plan that's for 30 days or 60 days if you have 60 days, that after building that fluency, you need to lock in and learn strategies and get more specific about what you're doing with all of your test prep time. We have these plans created for you. If you heard everything we said and were like, I can't do that, I don't know what I would put on that study plan, right. We have done the guesswork for you.
Yes. Yeah. Very well put. Exactly. So guys, go on over to allearsenglish.com/KEYS to join the course. You will download your study plan immediately and you'll get started with lesson 1 right there. You'll introduce yourself to the community, get invited to Open Conversation Club, and you will be in, right?
Yes, amazing. And then you'll get feedback on your essays. Yep. It's so helpful to have strategies that you can trust, really. Yes. It builds confidence. And so, yeah, we're excited. Come and check out the course.
And don't forget, we do have a Spotify poll for today, Aubrey, that we wanted to encourage our listeners. Aubrey, what's our poll for today?
All right. We want to know, did you prep for exams in high school? Maybe rarely or always. I know some people out there were able to take tests without really prepping much and get excellent scores.
Yes.
Not me. I had to study.
No, I always studied for exams. I never walked into an exam cold, but I had a roommate that used to drive me nuts. My freshman year in college, she would just walk into Bio 101. Bio 101 was quite advanced and quite hard for me.
Course,
very difficult. And she would just walk in there and score A's. I was like, what?
No, I know. And even if I did study, I mean, if I didn't study, I would maybe get a C at best.
Sure. Yeah.
But I had to hit the books.
Oh, yeah. Hit the books. Exactly. And do we have any other episode to send our listeners to, Aubrey?
Yes, if you missed it, scroll up and check out episode 1565, How Creativity Boosts Your IELTS Speaking Scores.
Beautiful.
So don't miss that one.
All right, guys, go on over to allearsenglish.com/KEYS to learn more about our system, 3 Keys IELTS. All right. Great, Aubrey. We'll talk to you very soon. You have a good day.
You too. See you next time.
Okay. Bye.